Have you ever stepped on your brakes and heard a terrible grinding sound? Maybe felt the pedal pulsate under your foot. Maybe the pedal sank all the way to the floor. These are all brake problem symptoms that most of us have experienced. Maybe you've just been curious about the condition of your brakes. Maybe you've been told that you need major work. Major work generally does mean major money. So watch over my shoulder while I service the brakes on this car and see what I mean. After jacking your car up and supporting it on safety-approved jack stands, remove the road wheel. When I pull this wheel off, I'm going to expose the brake disc, or rotor, and the caliper off to the right. The condition of the brake rotor should look similar to this. Nice, smooth, shiny surface. No gouges, bluing, or cracks. Take a close look at it. I'm going to turn the caliper now so we can see it. And in servicing a brake caliper, basically what you're doing is cleaning off any of the brake dust that is built up. And using a brake parts cleaning solvent such as this, just wash the caliper and remove all of that dust. It's a good idea, please, to catch the solvent in a pan for proper disposal. Next, we'll take a look at the pad material remaining. The brake pad material actually pushes against the brake rotor. Someplace around there you'll be able to get in and take a look at how much pad is left. If you've got a ½ an inch of pad, your brake pads are relatively new. If it's getting down where you're 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch, they're getting close to needing replacing. This is part of our inspection, is seeing how much brake pad material we have left. That's about it for servicing the front brake disc, caliper, and rotor assembly. Replace your road wheel. Put all of your lug nuts on and snug them up. I'm going to be using a pneumatic wrench to snug these, but that's all I'm going to do. This is an alloy wheel on a disc brake assembly, and if I over-tighten them with an air wrench, I can distort the wheel and the rotor and cause brake shake. If you're using a cross-type wrench or a lug wrench, snug them up until the car is on the ground, and then tighten them up. Tighten them up as tight as you can get them by hand, but remember that you or someone else will want to take the wheel off again. I'm going to be using a click-type torque wrench set at 85 foot-pounds per square inch. I'll tighten the lug nuts in a cross pattern, ensuring equal pressure on all 4 of the lug nuts, which will help prevent the wheel or the rotor from warping. Now let's move to the rear. After jacking up the car and supporting it on safety-approved jack stands, remove the road wheel. When I take this wheel off, I'll expose the rear brake drum. The rear brake drum houses the brake shoes and the brake cylinder. We're basically going to inspect and clean this rear drum assembly. When you remove the drum, there'll be a certain amount of brake dirt, brake dust built up inside. That's what we want to remove. Take the drum off and inspect it for wear. It should be smooth, no gouges. At this point, you'll also want to inspect the brake shoes, the pad material on the arc of the shoe. Cleaning the brake assembly is essential also, removing the brake dust, which can create noise and faster wear of the shoes. Catch the brake parts cleaner in a pan for later disposal. Wash the drum itself. If there's a buildup of any moist brake dust or any obvious grease or brake fluid, you probably have a cylinder leak that you'll need to tend to. Now that we've got everything washed, we want to grease the backing plate. In order to do so, we need to remove the brake hold-down spring. Some are spring clips like this. Still others are a spiral spring with a cap on it. Take off both the front and the rear shoe hold-down springs. This will allow us to pull the shoe away from the backing plate just a little bit. On each shoe, there's 3 or 4 points that the shoe touches the backing plate. These points are where we want to put just a little bit of a white lithium type grease. A little stiff brush, just enough to get it in there. Don't worry if you get a little on the shoe, because we can wipe that off. The points that the shoe touches the backing plate is quite often the area that any brake squeal will come from. And by putting just a little bit of grease on each of those points, it gives it the lubrication to eliminate the squeal. Next, we'll inspect the wheel cylinder. It's the pump that actually pushes the shoes out against the brake drum. This one is located on the top, that cylinder. These are dust boots on either end of the cylinder. If you see that there's any brake fluid leaking around these dust boots, this is a problem and we should replace the wheel cylinder. Next, replace the brake hold-down springs. A twisting action on the brake nail will secure the spring in place. At this time, you've inspected the shoes. If they're thin, you'll know that you need to replace them. If you don't want to do the job yourself, at least you'll know that you're being told the truth when you're told that you need shoes. Now that we've got the shoes securely against the backing plate, we want to remove the lithium grease that's smeared over the top of the shoes. Brake parts cleaning solvent on a rag will wipe the shoes clean and not leave a residue. Everything's in good shape in this car. We'll replace the drum and the road wheel. Put all the lug nuts on and get them started. I'm going to be using a pneumatic wrench to snug the lug nuts on the studs, but I'm only going to snug them. I'm not going to tighten them. This is still an alloy wheel, and I don't want to distort the wheel itself. If you're using a cross-type lug wrench or a lug wrench, tighten them up securely enough to get the car on the ground. Once it's on the ground, tighten them up as tight as you can get them, but remember, you're going to have to take the wheel off again. I'm going to use a click-type torque wrench. I'm going to set it to 85 foot-pounds per square inch and tighten the lug nuts in a cross pattern to ensure equal pressure on each of the 4 lug nuts. Inspecting and properly maintaining your brakes can save you a lot in unnecessary and costly brake repair. And here's a few more tips to remember. Most cars today are equipped with disc brakes on the front wheels. And the disc brake pads have small wear indicators to let you know when the pads need to be replaced. Some of them are a little tuning fork. And when the material gets too thin, it puts out a loud squeal. Still others will illuminate a light on the dash that says pad replacement. And disc brake pad replacement is not that difficult, providing the rest of the system is working correctly. Jack up the car and support it on safety-approved jack stands and remove the road wheel. This will expose the brake disc and the caliper assembly. The brake pads are housed within the brake caliper assembly. While you've got the wheel off at this point, look at the rotor. Inspect the rotor for any gouging, any bluing, any cracks. Wash the brake caliper with brake part solvent cleaner. You want to get the brake dust off so it doesn't fly around when you're removing the brake caliper.